Mr. Larkin, welcome.
Mr. President, good afternoon. Harry Black talked on our process just for a bit, so I'm not going to get into too much detail, but the one thing I would like to add to Carthan's slide, the previous slide, was that we're going to be using the award period to help the city determine what to do with all the challenges that were mentioned on the previous page. So we have several strategies and tactics that we're already considering for those, but that is precisely what we're going to be using that period of time between now and March 1st for. Can we go to the, oh, we're on that good page, thank you. The RFQ and RFP process we put together for the city for two major reasons. One is that we have always considered the Boulevard a gateway site to the city, and we always considered the Boulevard a future economic generator for the city as well. So our RFQ and RFP process was created to specifically respond to those two opportunities for the site. As Harry mentioned, in the end of 2007, we started with the Boulevard site. We put together an RFQ, a request for qualifications, but prior to sending this out, we met with all the stakeholders. Could you hit the second bullet, please? Thank you. And we met with these stakeholders to talk about issues, concerns, and desires for the site. So after we met with these stakeholders, we advertised and distributed over 100 RFQs out to the development community. And for potential developers and investors, we made sure that this RFQ got on their desk so they could take a look at it. As the year progressed, in March of 2008, 6 development teams submitted interest to the RFQ. We invited them to an RFP round. One of the interesting things that came out of our RFP round was a question about baseball being included on the Boulevard. And what we heard from all the development teams was that a different location would be better for baseball. So that was an important thing for us to hear. In June of this year, the city and the Staubach JLL team hired ERA, also known as Economic Research Associates, to take a look at the comparative economic issues surrounding baseball, surrounding various locations for baseball. And the conclusion of that study was that the best economic generating location for baseball was in downtown in Shockoe. In October of 2008, as Harry also mentioned, we did the master development selection of the Highwoods team and what we're calling our associate developer team as well, the Robert C. Bob and Armada Hoffler team too. And now I'm going to turn the presentation back to Carthan, who's going to talk about Main Street Station.
Mr. President, members of council, if I could draw your attention now to the Main Street RFP opportunity. Above is an aerial of the Main Street Station and the surrounding acreage. The land surrounding Main Street Station currently is predominantly undeveloped parking lots. Let me discuss with you this afternoon some opportunities. The first one, that Shockoe really represents potential for a true mixed-use community and the fastest growing census tract in the city. Number 2, that it represents 22+ acres, the largest continuous undeveloped property in our downtown. Number 3, the station will serve as a primary gateway to the region as a primary multimodal transportation center, including the hub for the state rail system. And number 4, it also has high visibility from Interstate 95 and direct access to that interstate. Some of the challenges that this represents to us. Number 1, stormwater management. Number 2, integration of new development within an existing community. And number 3, location of existing large-scale utility infrastructure just below grade. Next slide talks about multimodal transportation development and the goals of the RFP. To deliver a multimodal transportation center, an obligation to the $61 million in federal and state funding, to expand the modes of transportation offered at Main Street Station, and to create a transient-oriented development surrounding the Main Street Station through a joint development relationship with private capital. The next slide represents since its acceptance of the flood wall in 1995, federal, state, and local investments to improve and protect the infrastructure surrounding Main Street Station and Shockoe Bottom have approached nearly $400 million. The next slide shows existing infrastructure, historical and cultural assets surrounding Main Street Station that cannot be replicated. The next two slides talk about the process of the RFP process with regard to Main Street Station. In August, an RFP was advertised in 2007. Also, that month and that year, FEMA expanded the 100-year flood plan, complicating development opportunities at the site. And in October, the RFP response is due, the ballpark concept included within Highwoods' proposal as an option. In 2008, in January and again in May, developers were interviewed. In January, the Boulevard RFP underway to consider its highest and best use. And in October, Highwoods is selected as the master developer. At this time, Mr. President, members of council, it's my pleasure to introduce Mr. Paul Kreckman, his Vice President for the Highwoods Properties of Virginia, who will present their vision for both the Boulevard Gateway and Main Street Station.
Mr. Kreckman, good to see you, sir.
Good to see you, sir. All right, good deal. Good afternoon. It's been a while since I've been here. It's good to be back. I'm pleased to be here for the first of many community conversations about a unique generational opportunity to reshape our city and our region, to relocate and replace many of our prominent community assets with better facilities and more appropriate locations, and to unlock enormous economic development potential in our city. The procedural rules that we have been following for the past year have precluded us from engaging in this very necessary conversation, but today we are free to begin the process. And by all means, this is a process for our entire community. Shortly, I'll be laying out a vision for two areas of our city. It shows some ideas based on sound land planning and common sense economic development principles. It is a good starting point for many conversations to follow for community input and for shaping the projects. At the end of this process, our goal is to have two projects that all of us can take pride in having created together. What we need now is honest dialogue, true community spirit, and open minds to see the potential where today there is only a glimmer of an idea. So let's begin. Highwoods is honored to serve as the master developer of these two intertwined projects and at the head of a predominantly local team of highly talented and skilled professionals. This team spans the spectrum of capabilities needed for projects of this magnitude. We on this team live and work in this community, share a personal interest in the success of our city and our region. We're all in this for the long haul. And as one of my colleagues once say, we eat our own cooking. If we're going to cook it, we're going to have to eat it along with you. What is the role of a master developer? Highwoods will coordinate and oversee the work of many teams that will be required to realize this grand vision for our community. Specifically, we will manage the appropriate land use process through normal channels, find qualified developers to invest in the non-office portions of the projects, and ensure that the highest quality results are achieved.